expect us to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we'll say we want to do the right thing, but now, if that's all, if for me to say, my wife is the head of the house,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and,
The house is out of order.
it's out of order, but yet still how can, she get a prayer through her, you know, doing this? It's wrong. And these are the little things we have to make sure that it don't happen. You know, cause you don't know when you're gonna die. You don't know when things gonna happen. So you can't stand before God and say, Lord, I would have had that apartment, but my wife wanted that apartment, and the only way she could get that apartment is, saying she was the head of the house, and that's how she got the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Little foxes that's falling behind.
Yeah, but.
But see, that's different if she says she's the head, that depends on what the two of you agree to.
Right, I was thinking
But
that
you're still
too.
not hiding him.
Right,
They
right.
know that he
He's
stays
there.
there. They know that somebody else might stay there. But see, there's a place, an area, a house that people are in,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody who's in there that work, that's according to how much they're supposed to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have them there, but you don't tell them that they're there.
Right.
And therefore, your rent is lower because you didn't mention them who have, you know,
Mhm.
making money. So that's still, you're lying. Yeah. And you're
That's
saying
true.
that you're a saint.
That's true. That's true.
Well, they got to get it right before they leave here.
Mhm.
I tell you.
So, 'cause,
Now, way back, when the children were they became teenagers and they was doing their little work. The system still know that they was working, you know?
yeah.
Through them.
When they were doing the summer
Yeah.
youth programs.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they knew that they was working, you wasn't hiding that.
Right.
And they couldn't charge more rent.
Nope.
Because
So
of
nothing. So that was
You know, when I was living in the Everfield apartment, you had to put down, you know, your salary and everything. And there was some people lived there that told me how to go by doing it, where I didn't have to pay that much rent. I wouldn't do it. I said, no, I can't do that.
Mm-mm.
And after a few years they was there, they got caught.
Yeah. Of course.
Just like when I moved out here, God told me, oh, I can save you some money. You ain't got to pay no gas bill. You can go this way and do this here. And you ain't got to pay no, you can use all the gas you want, and you ain't got to pay for it.
Yes, you
And those
do.
same people got caught.
Yeah. Yes, you do. In the long run, they catch up with
So
you.
it don't pay to do the wrong thing.
Doesn't. Crime does not.
And then when you fill out an application for an apartment, on that, and it's almost on every application, if I'm correct, they ask you, is you married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got your husband in the house with you, and you the head of the household, and you know you don't want nobody to know that. You definitely lying because that application asks you, is you married?
Yeah.
They probably.
And sometimes they ask you how.
separated.
And
Okay.
sometimes you go by a
Right.
person, when you get certain apartments,
Mhm.
they go by your credit history. Your
And the
credit.
person that got the
So
best
if your
one.
wife has better credit than,
Yeah.
better than the husband, then
Yeah.
of course she'll be on the lease
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
But the husband still should be on the lease.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
He should still be on the lease. If you're married, he
Yeah.
still should be on the lease.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it should be, but, I mean, if you're saved and mean and want to please God, you have to put the money, you have to do the right thing.
Right.
They wanna know how many in the house.
You know?
Yeah, but just like they say, they going by income. So,
Yeah, they go by income.
like when I went to get my apartment from the shelter, they went by the income. How many people is counted through Section 8? So there's two sources of income that's coming into the household. So the main income is the person that has the main income, you know, and they the one that pay. So depending on the as he said, depending on that income, whoever, if it's the husband that's making the good income and got the good credit,
Right.
that apartment is gonna be in his name. But you still gotta say, yes, I got a wife and I got some children, or so and so. Sometimes landlord will ask you, are you gonna have visitors? Or, you know, what type of, depending on what type of area and what type of house you're moving into, they will ask you certain questions. That's why I say it's really none of their business. You just gotta be a truthful tenant.
Right.
You know, whoever you say living with you, that's who should be living with you. But they don't look at it if you have a visitor, because they know certain things happen. So when you go to apply for the shelter, they want to make sure that you ain't got no place to go. Because if you got a place to go, you can't get in the shelter. If you even if you ain't got no address, you can't get in the shelter.
No.
It's not even, it's not easy. See, people look at bums and look at people on the street and say, oh, they should go in this. They got shelters, they got food, and they got this. It ain't that easy. If you get the wrong, you walk into a shelter and get the wrong atmosphere, the wrong person, they won't help you. Even though they may, and you can come back another day and get somebody good and they'll help you right on through it. But if you ain't got no address, you have a hard time getting up in there, because they gotta send your information somewhere for you to get. Otherwise, if you ain't got no, that's why some people say, can I use your address if they in a shelter? Because other than that, they're gonna say, well, how are we supposed to get in contact with you? They'll open your case and your case will close just as fast as it open, because if they send you an appointment and you don't make it, you lost. You lost out. I've seen people have to leave the shelter and start all over again because of the simplest things. And sometimes it's the people, the workers, don't like somebody, and they take your paperwork and throw it underneath the table, and that's it.
I thought that if you didn't have a place to go, you could go to the shelter. They'll take you right in.
The shelter is a shelter, but you got to get in the shelter.
I'm saying to get in there.
You got to get in it. You got to go through a whole procedure before you actually get into a shelter. Yeah, they got a lot of places around here. Oh, that's a shelter there. That's a shelter there. You just don't walk into that shelter. You got to be assigned to that shelter. So you got to go through something that's called a path. And you go in there first. And you got to stay in there for a while. Then they got to find a place for you and your family. And if it's a single person, they send you to a single shelter. If it's two people, they got something for two people that if a woman can't just go in the shelter with a man. That either got to be your husband or that got to be your children. If you got some children, it got to be their father. Other than that, they got something, I forgot what you call it, that you got to go and get it signed off, that y'all two is like together like a couple. So just like we saying, you go into something together with your husband, they supposed to know about it. Because they ain't even allowing you to come in the shelter with just a man. That man got to be in some connection with you. And I know when I was in the shelter, there was a lot of women in there that had men coming in there. And when they got caught, they got thrown out. And they had to wait. I mean, they had to wait months because they wouldn't let them back in the system. So it ain't that easy. You know, it's even getting, huh? That's right. You got to prove it. Just like I said, when I went, I had to prove Tracy was my husband. Otherwise, we wouldn't have got in there. I knew he was my husband. The kids knew that was daddy. But they was like, do you have any proof? I said, oh my goodness. And I had all my paperwork in storage. But thank God Mary had her birth certificate, and on her birth, I wouldn't even think about birth certificates. Because, Tandra wasn't with me and Terrence wasn't with me, so they wasn't going in there. Because his name was on there. But it was Mary, because Danielle, that's not her father, so she ain't got it. So Mary was like, Mommy, I got my birth certificate. He on my birth. I said, oh, thank you. And I gave it to the man. The man said, all right, come on, now you can go through. And otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to get in there.
And see, too, they have to make sure that you don't have nobody, no man coming in there, because a lot of women were going in the shelters and bringing their husband or boyfriend.
Baby fathers, more than one.
Because they asked me, they didn't want to accept me in the shelter, but they did, and they said, you can't bring your husband. I said, trust me, he ain't coming in there. We're in this situation because of him. And you can the truck, believe me, he's not coming in my house. No.
Yeah.
I had to go through that and they turned me down. And I had to threaten to leave the kids there. I said, my mother don't have room, and she didn't. She had a house, but she didn't have the space.
Right.
And I told him, I can't leave here today and take these kids. Where am I going? My husband went on a vacation, and he didn't come back. We got a dispossess, had no food, and all of that there. I said, if I get a place, he's not coming in my home, and he didn't either. If you can do that to us,